I'm glad.
You're referring to the cement job that would have occurred just a few days before?
Correct.
No, ma'am.
Okay. How about, did you hear over that weekend or on the day of the incident anything about the negative test that was to be conducted?
No, ma'am.
Did you know how it was to be conducted
No, ma'am.
or who would be running that procedure?
No, ma'am.
Did you hear anything about the way the results were interpreted?
No, ma'am.
So when you came on tower that evening, as far as you were concerned, you weren't aware of any issues that might have suggested a problem with the well?
No, ma'am.
Did you play any role in getting centralizers from Weatherford out to the Deepwater Horizon shortly before the incident?
Which centralizers?
Any centralizers?
One second. The ones you're asking about, I'd like to make clear, are you referring to the original that came out with the casing shipment or the 15 that we brought out by helicopter?
Well, are we in agreement that there were 6 centralizer subs on the rig before the additional 15 arrived?
I never saw the 6 or put my hands personally on the first 6 centralizers.
But do you know for a fact that they were there?
I don't know that.
Do you have any reason to question that they were there?
No, I don't.
Okay. Who arranged for the shipment of the 15 centralizers in the few days before the incident?
That was a decision made by the engineering staff.
That's not really what I asked you, though. Who actually arranged for those centralizers to be located, identified, and somehow gotten out to the rig?
The sourcing of the centralizers, locating them centralizers and shipping them from whatever source to the aviation heliport in Homa was done by the engineering staff in town.
Okay, so did you play any role at all in that operation?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever deal with anyone from Weatherford on the issue of getting 15 centralizers out to the Deepwater Horizon?
I don't recall.
Do you know who Brian Clausen is?
No, ma'am.
If I told you that he's the Weatherford cementation sales representative, would that refresh your recollection?
The what now?
The Weatherford cementation sales representative, or at least that's what it said on some of his emails.
I still don't know who that person is. Now you're talking about Weatherford Casing Division.
Well, I'm just telling you his title that was on his email.
No, man, I don't know who that is.
Do you have any input from your position as to what kind of centralizers will be used with the well?
No, ma'am, I'm not an engineer.
So you would have no preference over a bowspring centralizer versus a centralizer
I'm
sub?
not an engineer.
What do you understand the type of centralizers to be of those 15 that were brought out to the rig?
Centralizers.
Okay. Do you know a distinction or make a distinction between bowspring centralizers and centralizer subs?
That does not involve my job role, and I'm not an engineer.
What did you do to prepare for your testimony today?
Judge, I'll object to that question. It's not relevant to the board's factual
Okay,
findings.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Well, if I might respond, it does go to the credibility of the testimony, though.
So, observed that he does have counsel. Okay, with some questions, he's, consulted with counsel to see if he should answer them. We assume, as we always do, that when people have attorneys, that they've reviewed their testimony with their attorneys. So we so I'm going to overrule I'm going to sustain the objection that witness does not need to go into a list of everything that he did to prepare for this testimony.
All right, well then, if I might follow up with one more specific question then. Did you meet with BP's lawyers to prepare for your testimony?
Judge, I'll object to that again. In terms of relevance, this board's purpose is to make factual findings, as I understand it, and whatever went into the preparation for Mr. Wilson or his appearance before this board is irrelevant to the board's purpose.
And if I may respond.
We think it's relevant to bias.
Right.
And
It-
that's
Well,
always-
It might be. Let's withhold ruling on
Judge,
that.
can't hear, Judge.
I'm not going to
Final-
rule it.
Perhaps controversial question. Is BP paying for your lawyer today?
Turn to go.
Where would we look in the documents if we wanted to find out if those pits were isolated on April 20th?
You'd have to look at the.
If it does not show if the pits were checked off, is there someplace else we could look for that information?
Well, it'd have to be the.
Where does the
high-tech.
seawater that you're displacing with come from?
Comes out of the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay, now, I've heard of a term called a sea chest. What's a
Sea-
sea chest?
Sea chest is where it sucks it in from the Gulf of Mexico.
All right, so is it coming, would you say it's coming from the sea chest if you're displacing with seawater, or from the Gulf? Or is it the same thing to you?
It's pretty much the same thing. Your suctions is down at the sea chest.
Water's not kept in an active pit, it's sucked in through the sea chest.
Correct. You can't measure what you're sucking in other than going by pump strokes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How do we know what volume is coming from the Gulf of Mexico through the sea chest?
It has to be pumped down hole with the rig pumps, and you know how much you're pumping with the rig pumps using strokes.
But it's not monitored coming in, is it? The volume?
Well, it has to go through the only way it can get down the hole is go through the rig pumps, and then we'll monitor it with the strokes from the rig pumps. You know exactly what you're putting down hole.
By the pump strokes,
Pump strokes, right?
not by actually measuring the volume of the seawater.
Just from the pump strokes.
So how do you use the PVT monitors to accurately tell us how much mud is being pumped if the seawater is not being measured volumetrically when it's brought in?
The only thing you go by is the strokes, the pump strokes. You know how many pump strokes.
So it sounds like what you're telling me is there's no way to accurately measure the actual volume of the seawater. You can only measure the pump strokes.
Go by the pump strokes.